and I am the ex officio president, former president of the Energy Bar Association, and you have dialed in or zoomed in to the inaugural Energy Bar Association Career Development Task Force program. The task force, well, I'll just back up just a quick second. You will see there should be a poll up online. Mine's not showing the questions. Mary Margaret, can you take a check on that and make sure that we get the right questions up there? I'll just keep talking while Mary Margaret works on that. Thank you for joining us. The Energy Bar Association, as most of you know, is the bar association of energy practitioners, professionals, and students with over 2,000 members in the US, Mexico, Canada, and beyond. We are in our 40-somethingth year. We've been around a good long while, and we do a lot of substantive programming, including our annual meeting and our mid-year meeting, and many other programs through our committees and chapters. But one area that we haven't done as good a job in covering, I think, is sort of those career planning, career development type of skills. And so the task force was set up about a year ago with myself as the chair, Mark Kalpin, Meredith Joliver, Jennifer Murphy, and our student board member, Stephanie Fishman, composing the task force. And you have dialed into our first program featuring Jason Levin, who is a career coach, and I'm sure he will tell us more about his work as we turn it over to him shortly. But we're really pleased to have you here. Jason's gonna give us a good conversation about SMART goals today. And with that, I don't think I have seen the quick poll work for me. I'm not sure if anyone else has seen the questions pop up.
I think it may have knocked us out because Lisa and I are using the same platform.
Okay, I'm getting off. Goodbye.
Bye, Lisa. So I think that Meredith, or excuse me, that Mary Margaret will have a poll that pops up at some point during here if she can get that going. I'm going to hand it on over to Jason and let him take the lead. Thanks, Jason. And Jason, you got to unmute. I see your phone is showing muted on my screen.
I can't get it off my phone.
Hey, there he is.
All right, can everybody hear me now?
I sure
can. Everybody hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. Well, thanks, Matt. Thanks so much. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here, and thanks to EBA for all the great work that you're doing. This is a topic that I find fun and enjoyable. So as we go throughout this, I'm really looking forward to some great questions. And I think the timing of this is also interesting as we're starting to think about the new year and potential New Year's resolutions. So how smart are you with your career goals can dovetail nicely to what you're thinking about for the upcoming year. So it seems like those that have voted, we have folks both in the private sector and in the public sector, different levels of work experience. And it seems like folks have not used SMART goals before, and they haven't used them in their career. So this will be a good primer for everybody. So just some quick background on me and why I do what I do. I grew up in northern New Jersey, and my father worked in the textile center in Midtown Manhattan. His father worked in the textile center in Midtown Manhattan, and so did his father. And so it was really difficult when our family went through my father's initial unemployment during the recession of 1990, where my two younger brothers and I, we went on the school's free lunch program after 6 months. And we became aware of the unpleasantness and uncertainty that comes with unemployment. And so I wanted to figure out why. So why do people succeed? Why do people do well? Why do people land? And so I did anything a natural high school student would do. I started subscribing to the Wall Street Journal and Forbes and Fortune. And if we were friends in college, I was mock interviewing you and helping you with your internship search. And so wherever I've worked, I've been in consulting roles, I've been in sales roles, I've been in brand management roles. I don't have an HR background, but just a genuine curiosity on why people are succeeding. And so the thread that really is throughout is coaching, professional development, and brand management have always been part of my core interests. And that's something I bring to my work. And I'm always finding new and different ways to improve my work, which is why we're talking about SMART goals. And we'll get into what that means, and then how you can think about your own career, not only for this upcoming year, but for future years. We're going to talk about turning plans into action, and then we're going to talk about how to support your team to achieve their SMART goals if you have folks that are reporting to you. So those are going to be the 4 topics of the day. And then after the webinar is complete, then feel free to ask questions. We can make this as interactive as we want. So one of my favorite quotes for inspiration is always to prepare for success. And I love the great Einstein, who often would say doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results is the definition of insanity. And so, and I'm thinking back to when I first brought SMART goals into my world, was when my wife and I, we've been married now for 11 years. We were on our second child about 8 years ago, and we started to realize that both work and life were just, we weren't making it happen. And so we actually instituted an annual planning day where we sat down and we wrote down our goals for the year. And we started using the SMART format. But the fun part about this is that it's not just a planning day. We actually have subsequent planning intervals that we do after that planning day. And so for us, we realized that we needed to change because my wife's a working attorney. I'm out on my own with 2 young kids. Work, life, we needed to figure out a way to make things work. So my hope for everybody today is that you begin to do something just a little bit differently with the hope of finding a different result for you, a different opportunity. So I want to introduce SMART goals, which I think is a wonderful way, and it's an acronym that allows for people to come up with a goal that has 5 pillars. So the essence part, SMART is specific, okay? So what is it that you are trying to achieve? And to get into, without using ambiguous language, what are you trying to get done within that goal? The M in SMART is measurable. So can you track the progress? Can you talk about time? Can you talk about number of hours? Can you talk about any way that you can find a measurement into that goal will make the goal that much more important to you. Attainable. So is the goal reasonable enough to be accomplished within your work, within your schedule? Attainable goals are the best type of goals because when you're actually making those things happen, you get more excited about it and you want to create new goals. Relevant. So is this goal worthwhile? So is this either worthwhile to your own career goals, the goals of your group, the goals of your team? So are you setting a relevant priority for what you're trying to do? And the last part of SMART is T, time sensitive. Is it timely? So when are you going to achieve this goal? Are you going to achieve this goal in 2 months or in 6 months? Or are you creating an annual goal where you're going to be blocking out specific amounts of time throughout that year so that you're able to achieve something specific? So this is the SMART concept. And you can Google SMART goals and a ton of different things will come up, but this is essentially what it is. So I want us to now take a step back and think of, okay, so if we're thinking about 2020, what are different areas of career growth that you can be thinking about to apply these SMART goals? And so typically when I'm working with folks, people come to me and say, I want to become a manager or leader, or I want to become a better manager or leader. And so I'll do a deeper dive with them and say, okay, well, what is it about your management approach or leadership approach that you want to improve? Typically, there's something around listening that comes up. Are you looking to manage up, manage down, manage sideways? But this is a topic that often comes up in my work. Innovative process or solution. So being in the Energy Bar Association, whether you're in private practice or in a federal government agency or in a corporation or a nonprofit, you're hearing more and more about legal operations. And so processes, solutions, how you get things done in your daily work could be an area of career growth, not only for you, but for your team. And this is something that I see often being talked about within different communities. Build, grow, expertise, and knowledge. You certainly want to be maintaining your expertise and where you're at. So where is it that you're going to build and grow that? What is it that you want to stay on top of? Are there new areas of knowledge or expertise that you want to bring into your world? Relationships. We can't have a career conversation without relationships. And so I wanted to break down how I see relationships, because there are different ways to be thinking about your relationships. One could be increased client or stakeholder contact. And so depending on where you sit, you might have a certain level of interactions with folks. How can you improve that? How can you nourish that? How can you make that better? Too often, and I don't like to use this word networking because I think it's a nonsense word, but the reality is that when you think about relationships, your best capital are the people that already know you. And so when you're thinking about 2020, how do you increase those current relationships? And then when we think about relationships, either finding a mentor, being a mentor, diversifying your mentor, your board of directors, however you think about it, everybody on this line is both a mentor and a mentee. And so relationships is also an area of career growth that you can be thinking about for the upcoming year. And then for those that are in private practice, of course, every year you're thinking about developing more clients and how to make that happen. So the next slide is an example of how you can take a SMART format to different areas of your potential career growth. And so the first one is increase my visibility within energy litigation by conducting a seminar on my area of expertise in the next 6 months. And so it's speaking specifically, and then you can even get more specific on where you would want to do that within the Energy Bar Association, within your area of practice, within your firm, within the government agency, whatever visibility that you're looking for. Enhance my current relationships by reconnecting with one former law school classmate every 8 weeks during the next 12 months. And I've said this before, your current relationships are the biggest capital that you have. And so reconnecting with people that you already know is an incredible use of time, because you can see where they're at, you can see where they've been. These are people that already know and trust you. And so setting a SMART goal specifically for reconnecting with your own relationships is an incredible use of time. How many times have you heard, oh, we just lost touch? Which is true. People just fall out of touch. But creating a SMART goal to get back in touch with people that you already know and like, and they'll be happy to hear from you. It's just that sometimes they don't have the bandwidth to just say hello. So why not take the initiative to do so? Develop 2 new legal relationships by attending 1 CLE and 1 Bar Association meeting in the next 12 months. It was funny. I was recently giving a talk on planning to a group of attorneys, and someone came up to me afterwards, and she said, you know, I only do CLEs from my computer. I never, ever get out of the office. I'm always doing remote CLEs. She said, you know, after hearing you talk, I'm actually going to, in the upcoming year, go and physically participate in a CLE. It'll get me out of the office. It's going to get me engaged with others. I'm going to hear what other people are talking about. And so even that level of incrementality to bring to what you intend to do in the upcoming year is a very good use of time. Grow my management ability by listening to one monthly podcast each month for the next 12 months. And so I'm working with somebody in a Fortune 500 where they're really thinking about upskilling themselves in management. And so the only time that they have to add to this is actually in their 1-hour commute to and from the office. So we have agreed that in one of the commutes that they will do on a monthly basis, they're going to commit it to themselves. And they're going to turn on a podcast, and we're going to talk about what they learned from that specific discussion. So there are many different ways that you can bring SMART goals into your world. So we've talked about SMART goals. We've talked about different career areas. Here are some examples of SMART goals. So then how can you bring a greater level of preparation and writing things down into your calendar to make the SMART goals happen? So love planning. My wife and I are both planners. And so I love looking for research on planning. And this one is my favorite because there was a researcher that was studying procrastination. And we all know that we procrastinate from time to time. And so the title of the research was called Strategies on Achieving. And they came up with 5 different groups. And they had 2 groups that just talked about what they were doing. And they had 1 group that just wrote down their goal. And then they followed them for an entire year. So you're 43% more likely to achieve your plan if you write it down. So, this is researched in other different areas. So writing down your goals is a good use of time, right? So they did another group where they had them write it down and share it with a friend. You're 62% more likely to achieve your plan if you write it down and share it with a friend. It's like, oh, this is really getting interesting. So you've got a SMART goal, you've shared it with somebody, this is pretty good, 62%, it's not bad. Then they had a group that wrote it down, shared it with a friend, and sent out weekly progress to a friend. And 76% actually achieved their goals by doing exactly that, writing it down, sharing with a friend, and sending out weekly progress. So you're getting very active with your goals. It's becoming a weekly conversation with you. And so that allows you to really draft your plan. Because if you're going to set something that's a priority for you in your career, for your team, you're going to use the SMART format, and then you're going to engage others. And so for me, I like to use tight time frames. So here's an example of a 6-month plan, right? Where you take one SMART goal, and it could be becoming a better manager, and it could be a lot more specific, but then breaking it up into 90-day increments. And what is it that you plan to do within those 90 days? And there could be a lot more detail in this. I wanted to keep the font size large enough. But at the end of each 90 days, you want to set a date at the end of those 90 days to evaluate your progress and see if there are things that you have learned. Is the goal still valid for you? And are there things that you can add into your next 90 days? And all I'm talking about is a half an hour or 45 minutes to sit down and say, okay, what have I done? What have I achieved? What makes me great? And then go and see if what you plan to do in the next 90 days still makes sense. And so you get yourself into a 90-day cycle of writing down, achieving your goals, learning new things, and moving forward to where it is that you want to be. So So we're talking about SMART goals, we're talking about writing it down, your own individual achievements. So let's say you have a team and you're working with a group of folks that are looking to work together on a particular goal. And so there are a couple ideas that I think could work for those that are managing people or leading people. First is show how their goals align with the overall team. So that the more that you talk about the team's goals and their goals, the more that they feel like they are contributing something to the overall team. Let your team know that you're genuinely supportive of their development. So you can actually couch these conversations, their SMART goals, in terms of how they are developing as an individual, either within a practice group or within an organization or within a federal agency or wherever that is, and so that you're bringing in mentorship and their own SMART goals. Share your SMART goals with your team. It's an example of the reciprocity principle, a level of transparency, so that if they're going to be more open to be sharing and talking about their goals, if you share your SMART goals to a point where you can share them. But I think that having that reciprocity will create better trust between you and your team. Embed your direct report SMART goals in check-ins and status updates. So if you're meeting with them once a week or once a month, or whenever it is that they're checking in to talk about goals, then as part of the agenda should be, what have they done against their SMART goal? So, and that gets back to the 76% where you're sharing it with a friend, you're just sharing it with your boss. And so it becomes ingrained and part of the conversation that you're having with your direct reports. And then offer specific praise when progress is being made against the SMART goal. Individually, as a team, your opportunity as a manager and as a leader is to be the cheerleader. And so your behavior is really important as you're talking about someone that's making a significant advancement on their own SMART goals. And so that provides for you a great opportunity to not only achieve your own SMART goals, but to encourage the other folks that are on your team to achieve their SMART goals. So what are other tools and techniques that you can be using to make sure that the plan gets executed? And I've got several ideas. The first is go to bed. I am a huge fan of sleep. My kids are now 8 and 6, and I value sleep even more every day. But there's a lot of research now on how even an extra 15 minutes or half an hour a day can improve your concentration, your cognition, your creativity, your ability to concentrate. So even you could set a sleeping goal that you will, instead of going to bed at 11 in the evening, go to bed at 10:45. And by going to bed 10:45, that's an extra hour of sleep in your week. So think about sleep and make it a priority. Doing a Pomodoro. So big fan of the Pomodoro technique. The Pomodoro technique was created in the 1980s by an Italian PhD. You can Google it and look it up. He set a tomato timer on his table. He got rid of any other distractions because he had to read hundreds and hundreds of pages for his dissertation. And so what he did was he set the tomato timer for 25 minutes. He did nothing but work. So no telephone, no distractions, no nothing. And then he took a 5-minute break. He walked up. In this day and age, you could check email, you could be doing all these different kinds of things. And then after 5 minutes, went back into his work. And so what he began to do was, as he understood how this concentration was really helping, focusing 25 minutes on a particular thing, he started to think of his tasks in terms of Pomodoros. And I can't tell you, even doing mini Pomodoros. So it might be 2:54 and you have a 3 o'clock meeting. What do? Check your email. Well, you could also be working on something that's important for those 6 minutes. And I can tell you, without distractions, you can get a lot done in 6 minutes. And so that also assumes that you have a most important task within your day. And so as we're thinking about SMART goals and breaking them out into 90-day intervals, the one thing that I'd like to work with folks on is at the end of your day, when you're about to shut down, think about tomorrow. And what's the most important thing that you need to do in the following day? Write it down. And that's your MIT. I have mine on my whiteboard in my home office. I'm a huge fan of the MIT because it allows you to visualize what's happening in the following day and then being able to make it happen. And then calendar blocking. So we're talking about setting up SMART goals. We're talking about different areas of your career, helping your team. So where is it that you can put this time into your calendar so that you're ensuring that your SMART goals are actually taking place? So aligning your priorities and your calendar. And that will help you make sure that the plan gets executed. I have one other recommendation. It is my favorite book ever. It shows you the geek that I am. The Checklist Manifesto by Atul Gawande. Now, Atul Gawande has written a whole host of really great books. This one's my favorite. He's a physician in Boston. And one of the things he recognized, being a physician, is that a checklist helps save lives in the emergency room. By going through a set of procedures, you understand what you need to do in the moment of crisis. And so Atul Gawande wanted to say, well, if there's a checklist in the emergency room, is there a checklist in other areas of business? And he went out and he found them, and he did. And so what I say to you is, for yourself and for your teams, are there habits and rituals that you can formalize in a checklist so that you can get these basic things done and done right and faster, so that allows you to focus on other types of priorities? Love the Checklist Manifesto, one of my favorites. And so want to now just let you know that I'm happy to keep in touch, happy to take questions. Being smart in your career is a really great use of your time, because the more that you focus on what your priorities are and allocating time to it, you're supporting your own goals. And if you're managing people, you have the opportunity to encourage others. So if there's any questions, I'll be happy to take them.
Jason, thank you so much. That was such an amazing amount of information. So many good ideas in there. I greatly appreciate it. You've touched on a lot of things. I believe I've unmuted everyone on my end, on the co-host end. So if you have a question and you would like to pose it to Jason, please unmute your line on your end and we'll take it. While people are thinking, I'll pose one question that came up for me. I wondered if in your coaching, whether you recommended to people a certain amount of goals. I saw in the presentation today, you kind of laid out 3 goals or SMART goals to focus on at a time, so as to avoid burnout or make sure that you're able to focus enough time.
Yeah. So for me, the number is not as important as what's your vision and what are your priorities for the upcoming year. Mm-hmm. And then we can determine the number of goals that supports that priority. But I agree that once you get beyond 3, it's too much. So keep your goals tight, keep them within something that you can achieve within the SMART format. And that's the fun part about the 90-day check-in, is that if you're making goals that are achievable, then you can reset for a new goal, let's say in August or whenever it actually does happen. So, but that's a great question, Matt. I get that question fairly often.
Others have questions? Well, as you see, Jason's information is here on the screen. The EBA office will be sending out this presentation with his permission so that you have access to it and his name. And if you have any follow-up for us, please let us know. I want to thank Jason again very much for your time. You've given us a lot to think about, and look forward to chatting with you again soon.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks so much. And thanks to EBA. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Jason.
Bye. Oh, bye-bye.